Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so here again we have which of the following is equivalent to the complex number I to the 15th power? Uh, so let's first start with our imaginary number. We have a number raised to the 15th power. And we want to, you know, well, something to remember is that there is a sequence. All the imaginary numbers have a sequence of 1, I, -1, -I. But so this sequence, it should be good to memorize it. So you just need to memorize this, and you'll see why. But I equals I, of course, and then I squared equals -1, and then I to the third power equals -I, and then I to the fourth power equals +1. And you'll see that sequence will repeat over and over and over. Okay, so if you keep going, if you say I raised to the fifth power, this will be I. And then if you keep going, I to the sixth power, this will be -1. And then to the seventh power would be -I, and so on. And you can just do that forever, and that will be one way in which you would get this answer here. But that would be too long, and you don't want to do that. So you want to take a shortcut. And in order to do that is you need to remember this. And all of this comes from this concept. The square root of -1 is an imaginary number. All right. And so when you squared that imaginary number, you get rid of the square root sign. All right. Because when you have this, for example, this number here, this exponent here eliminates this. All right. So when you square this number, you get that the I squared equals -1. And so that's what we have here. You see? I squared equals -1. All of these imaginary numbers come from this concept that the square root of -1 equals I. All of these imaginary numbers come from that concept. So let's start with the problem. We have this problem here, and we need to get an answer that one of these answers, like either 1I, -1, -I. We don't know which one. So the first thing that you should do is you take this number 15, and what you need to do is you need to try to get a number that it's a multiple of 4. You'll see what we're talking about now. You need to get a multiple of 4. So in that case, if I do this, for example, so remember, you're just trying to get this number, a multiple of 4. So which number is a multiple of 4 here? Well, 15 is not, because 15 divided by 4 doesn't give you a whole number. So 14 divided by 4 doesn't give you a whole number. Neither does 13, but 12 does. So here I know that 15, I can get 12 out of here, right? And we'll go back to the concept again. So if I have I to the fourth power raised to the third power, I have 12. And then what I need to do is, what number do I need to complete that? Well, 3. All right. So I have, if you see, what I'm trying to do is I'm manipulating this number to get it to a place where I can substitute by this sequence. Okay. And so what we did here is 4 times 3 is 12. and 12 plus 3 is 15. And so you guys need to remember that in algebra, and you probably took this in algebra 1, whenever you multiplied two letters, let's say in this case A, whenever you multiply these two letters, what you really are doing is adding the exponents. 1 plus 1 equals 2. You're adding the exponent. Whenever you multiply, you add the exponents. Whenever you raise to a certain power, for instance, in this case, a squared raised to the third power, in that case, what you do is you multiply the exponents. So whenever you raise, when a letter is raised to a power, you multiply the exponents. And when you have a multiplication of letters, you add the exponents. So you need to remember these concepts. So 2 times 3 equals 6. So you need to remember that because that's really important for this part. And what I did here is completely valid in algebra, because what I did was I broke it down so that I could manipulate this number. So you'll always do that. You'll get a number that is a multiple of 4, and you'll always have either 1 or 2 or 3 left. Okay, you'll either have 1, 2, or 3 left. In this case, we had 3 left. And I'll give you multiple examples so that you see what I'm talking about. All right, we'll do I with 14 and I with 13 as well, so that you can see other examples. But you need to remember this. This is very important. I'm gonna erase this, but you'll have the video to look at it again. All right, very good. So once I have this, and remember, all of this equals I to the 15th power. I'm just manipulating the number to get it in a way that I can work with, because I know the sequence right here. All right, so here it's super simple. After you do that, that's the hardest part. After you do that, you just substitute. You have I to the 4th power, you know that is 1. So you have, and 1, the beauty of this is that any number, 1 raised to any number is going to be 1. Okay, 1 raised to a billion will always be 1. So that's why you get this number here, because you'll always have 1 here. And then here, I to the 3rd power equals negative I. And so you just need to remember these concepts here. Basically, these 3 concepts, because I will always equal I. But remember these 3 concepts. All right. And once you have that, your answer should be 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. And so this will be the final answer. All right, I'm going to stop the video here. Well, actually, I'm not going to stop the video here. I'm going to do another example with a different number, and then I'm going to stop the video so that you guys can ask questions, okay? Let me give you another example so you have more examples in your video. And then you guys will ask questions. All right, so we did it with 15. Let's do it with 14. All right, good. So what I'm trying to do here is, remember, always it would be beneficial if you just write this down so that you remember. You know, negative I and I to the 4th power equals 1. All right, negative 1. All right, so it's always good to have this so that you can substitute it at the end. So what I'm doing here, every time you get this number here, what you're trying to do is you get a multiple of 4. So a number that can be divided by 4, and then the rest you just multiply it. So in this case, you have 14. Well, I can say that 14 equals 12, because 12 divided by 4 equals 3. So I can get 12, and then the rest would be 2. I'm doing it like this. It might be actually more confusing, but you'll see what I'm talking about. The idea is here that I'm trying to get a number that is a multiple of 4 so that I can manipulate I. And that number is 12 because I can divide 12 by 4. Any number that you can divide by 4 and it'll give you a whole number, that's a multiple of 4. And then the rest, you just write it as I'm going to write it right now. All right, so you have I to the 14th power equals, okay, you do parentheses. I think that's how you pronounce it. All right, you get a 4, and this you raise it to the third power because 4 times 3 is 12. And then you have here I squared. And again, all of this is the same. 4 times 3 is 12, and 12. So if you really do the multiplication, remember, you're always multiply when a variable is raised to a power, you multiply the exponents. So if you do this, 12i, now this, when you multiplication, you add the exponents. Okay, so all I'm trying to tell you guys is that this is the same. You know, I'm not changing anything. I'm just manipulating it to be able to work with it. But it's the same. This is not the answer. This is just to show you that this is valid. All right. So what you should do in this case is, again, you take 14 and you say 14 is equal to I to the 4th power raised to the 3rd power multiplied by I squared. And now you know the value of this and you know the value of this. So you just need to substitute. I to the 4th power is 1. 1 raised to 3 is 1. Any number raised, 1 raised to any number, any whole number, it's going to be 1. And so this is negative 1. It's here, right? And then finally, 1 times 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 positive times 1 negative is 1 negative. And so I to the 4th power equals negative 1. All right. Let me do a third example. You can pause the video when you're watching the video to, try to understand the concepts. All right, I'm going to do a third and final example. This I will do it a little bit faster. All right, so we did it with 15, 14. Let's do it with 13. I to the 13th power. All right, again, what you need to do, you need to find a number that is a multiple of 4. In this case, again, we already know that is 12. The closest one is 12. So 4 raised to the 3rd power times I. In that case, remember that I has we don't have to write the exponent, but it's 1. So 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 plus 1 is 13. 13. So this is equivalent. All right, so what you need to do here is substitute. You know that I to the 4th power equals 1. And this you don't have to substitute because you need to express it in these terms. And basically 1 times 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times I is I. So I to the 13th power equals I. I'm going to stop the video here and I'm going to have your questions.